We're going to jump out to Florida and talk with William. Hey, William, what do you got for us tonight?
Good night, Andrew Farley. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes.
God bless you, and I pray for you. I mean, I learned so much from your ministry. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, I have two questions because me and a friend were talking about
Yeah.
the Ten Commandments, and I was telling him that sin is bigger than the Ten Commandments, but I couldn't able to explain what else it looks for because when I look at Romans chapter 14 and verse 23, it says anything is not a faith is sin. I would love to for you to elaborate on that and let me
Yes.
know what if it's in my life, how can I identify it? And also James chapter 4 and verse 17. There anything to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, that's also a sin.
Yes. Okay. All right. So none of that's going to work unless we're dynamically led by God's Spirit. I mean, to know that something is good and not do it, that means you're being led, you're being counseled, you're being guided into what is good. If Paul writes that anything that's not of faith is sin, well, then apparently you're supposed to be trusting or having faith in this dynamic, vibrant, spirit led relationship that you have with God. Now, it's interesting because basically your question is how do we define sin without the law? And that is the discussion that you're having with your friend. Well, I've got a better question. Can you imagine having to define sin using the law? Oh my goodness, 613 definitions of sin. Are you kidding me? Eating pork would be sin, eating shellfish would be sin, doing Friday night emails would be sin, Saturday yard work would be sin, and that's one of the 10 Commandments, the Sabbath. So we better be thankful. We better be glad that we're not having to define sin by the law as Christians. And yet, I hear that all the time, William. I hear people saying things like, well, we need the law to define sin for the believer. And that is not the case. Again, even if you use the 10 Commandments, what are you going to do? Delete one, chop one off, and then that's your definition of sin? 9 things? Well, that's pathetic. And I think that's your point in calling tonight, how ridiculous it is to think that there are 9 definitions of sin based on 9 commands that are written on stone. No, sin is anything, any step taken that is not in dependency on Christ. And that's why it's so laughable that everybody's trying to hang on to the 10 Commandments for Christians as our definition of sin and then as our guide for morality. Well, great. Bravo. You've stopped stealing. Oh, aren't you something? Oh, great. You've avoided adultery. Incredible move. Fantastic, guy. Well, you know what? That's just the tip of the iceberg as far as what the Spirit of God is going to produce in us. So when people throw stones at the message of God's grace and start talking about how we're neglecting the 10 or neglecting the law, it's just laughable because, again, Romans says that under the law, sin is alive. And apart from the law, sin is dead. And so, this idea that we're going to use the 10 Commandments as our guide and our definition of sin, well, again, what a pathetic definition of sin with only 9 things. Then the idea, and I guess this is what's happening in Christian society today, we run around beating our chests thinking, well, look at me, I'm not doing any lying and cheating and stealing, therefore I must be a good Christian or whatever. Well, actually, Christianity is Christ. Christianity is not avoiding 9 things. Christianity is Jesus and expressing Him. So, ironically, there's 9 fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Those things express themselves in thousands of ways. And so when we just try to say no to 9 things, like 9 commands on stone, we're missing the dynamic, vibrant relationship that we have with Jesus. Plus, who told us we could stop at 9? I mean, where in the world do we get the idea that we can take the law, 613 things, And then, well, I guess we'll just take 604 of them and chuck them out the window. And then we'll take 9 and define sin with them. What chapter and verse tells us we get to do that? So our infatuation with the 10 commandments, or better yet, our infatuation with 9 commandments, deleting the Sabbath, is arbitrary. It's random, and it's not biblical. So when the Spirit of God is at work in our lives, He does more than just helping us and guiding us away from lying and cheating and stealing. And that's why we can't have tablets of stone as our focus. We've got to have the Spirit of God as our focus. We walk by the Spirit. We live by the Spirit. We pray in the Spirit, meaning knowing that we have a new location, a dynamic union with Christ that is our motivation for everything. So I hope that helps, my friend, as far as knowing. I mean, you got to know that you could give $1 billion to a charity, and it could be sin. It could be the sin of pride or the sin of look at me and what I'm doing. You could do some incredible things like preaching and teaching, and then find out, well, depart from me, I never knew you, because all you were thinking about is you and your preaching and teaching. My point is, there's good-looking sin, and there's bad-looking sin. There's many flavors of sin. Anything that's not of faith is sin. Anything that's not of Jesus is sin. There's such a thing as wax fruit, a spiritual fruit that is no fruit. Have you ever tried to bite into wax fruit? I tried once. My mom had purchased a basket of some very convincing-looking fruit, but it did not taste good. So likewise, we can engage in religious works that are wax fruit, dead works. And Jesus is not interested in that because it's not of Him. So what do we do then? Do we try to examine every move we make? No. The Bible tells us, walk by the Spirit, and you will not fulfill the desires of the flesh. So let's just fix our eyes on Jesus. Let's get to know Him. Let's get to know the gospel. There is no substitute for getting to know the truth of the gospel. And when we're walking in truth, then everything comes to light and is obvious and plain. And the Spirit of God is eager. He's eager to lead us in every moment of our lives. We don't need Moses when we've got Jesus. Flirting with Moses is cheating on Jesus. So, William, I hope that helps, my friend. Great question, and to reach out to us again anytime.